Hello, everyone. Happy New Year to all the listeners, and welcome to another year of City Speak. I'm your host, Clarence Anthony, CEO and Executive Director of the National League of Cities. Now, I am so honored today to have a great leader from Louisiana, and someone who many of you in our listening audience know already. She was a member of the Louisiana House of Representatives from 1992 to 2004 and the Louisiana State Senate from 2005 through 2016. She also served as President pro tem in the Senate and Speaker pro tem in the House, the only woman to hold both titles in Louisiana history. And then she decided to come to the real level of local government that made a difference. She was elected mayor of Baton Rouge in 2016, where she served until just last week, when her final term as mayor will conclude and has concluded already. She has a lot of wisdom and insight to share because over those 35 years, you've learned a lot that you can share with those that are still in office. And most of all, I think we're looking to create leaders for the future. So I am so honored to have a friend, a leader, and a committed public servant on City Speak this month. And so you guys welcome Mayor Sharon Weston Broome. Hello, Mayor. How are you?
Hello, Clarence Anthony. I am terrific. Thank you so much for having me on City Speak.
Oh, it is my honor. Sometimes the most difficult guests are those that you know personally, because sometimes you just start saying, Mayor, do you remember that time? But I won't go there. I'll make sure we stay on the things that I think are important to our listeners. I want to start with the question that oftentimes people are interested in, and clearly I am. We often hear about elected officials who serve in the town or the city they grew up in, but your family had seeds in Baton Rouge, and you came back from Chicago. Tell us about your journey to Baton Rouge and why you call the place home now.
Well, first of all, it's a very interesting story. I often think of Isabel Wilkinson's book, The Warmth of Other Suns, where she talks about the great migration of African Americans. My parents both migrated from the South to Chicago. My dad from the Baton Rouge area to Chicago, and my mom from a little town in Mississippi called Kosciuszko to Chicago. They met and married there and began their life. And their house was a house and a home of transition for other relatives who wanted to leave the South and come to the North or Midwest or other areas like many did during the Great Migration for a better life. And so after being in Chicago for almost 50 years, and I was born and raised there in Chicago, of course, a great experience being raised in a city like that. My dad proclaimed and pronounced to my mother and I that he was tired of the cold weather. He was aging and tired of the cold weather and wanted to return to the South. Of course, I was very startled and a little bewildered about that proclamation that he made. But I grew up as an only child, was their only child. They were aging, and I said, okay, I'm going to help you all with the transition. In my mind, I was saying, as soon as I get there, find out everything is cool in Baton Rouge and you're fine, then I'm going to hightail it back to Chicago. But Clarence, that never happened because I fell in love with Baton Rouge. And I fell in love with the people here. I fell in love with the food. And I tell you, it was a stark contrast with the weather. And I like the warm climate. So all of that caused me to stay and make my roots right here in Baton Rouge.
What's so special about Baton Rouge that people may not even know about? Because I was just there, in June or so last year, and I saw some of the things that really made me want to come back. What makes you want to come back to Baton Rouge?
Well, certainly those items that I mentioned, the people, there's no hospitality. You won't find hospitality anywhere like you will here in Baton Rouge. For those of you all who like humidity, we did create humidity right here in Baton Rouge. And certainly the best food in the world. We can't even leave here, Clarence, and go other places without taking our Tony Chachery with us. But beyond that, we are a city on the mighty Mississippi River. We are a capital city. We have a strong diversity of arts and culture here in Baton Rouge. And so these are the things that draw people to this wonderful city.
And so hearing you say that, it gets you're so excited about a community. Tell me, why did you go into public service? What drew you into deciding to run for the Senate and then the mayor president of Baton Rouge?
Well, I will tell you, I often share with people, Clarence, that if we look at our lives, we see threads or themes in our lives that have started from when we were a child to high school to college. And when I look back on my life, I see a theme of leadership and a theme or thread of communication. And so I was always involved in something while I was in school in terms of leadership, being on the student council, in college, being part of the African American Students Association. And then there was always that desire in me to, speak, to share my voice, to use my voice. And so after being in Baton Rouge for 10 years, I became a little disenchanted, and that is often the catalyst for an entry into what I like to say public service versus politics. There was this desire in my heart to see things differently in my community. And I felt this call that was saying to my heart, you can do something about this, you can help. And so, only being in Baton Rouge for 10 years, not a native daughter, I decided to offer myself up for leadership on the city council level or metro council. That's the first time I've ever ran for public office. And I ran for the metro council in 1988 and was successful. And I often tell people, Clarence, I never carved out a path for politics. And, many of our leaders who are public servants often get labeled as career politicians, and I do not like that label because I know for myself and for many other leaders who are public servants that the goal is service. And for me, my longevity evolved. I never carved out a path and said, I'm going to run for this next, I'm going to run for that next. It evolved. And as a result of that, I believe the people, and I humbly say this, saw my heart of service and knew that my motives were not birthed out of a hunger for authority or power, but a desire to make a difference in our community. And so that's how it all started. And from there, from the city council to becoming a state representative, to becoming a state senator, then the mayor, the title position that I really am so thankful for. I feel like I came full circle back to local government. And you and I know local government is where we really help the citizens.
Yeah, and I do think that you get that calling and you get that desire to make the place that you live better. And that's important to getting the right kind of people with the right kind of mission and passion about public service. And you sort of talked about this concept at our city summit in Tampa, our 100th anniversary summit, in your speech about building pathways to a brighter future for all residents, whether investing in underserved neighborhoods or building resilient communities. Tell me about why you talked about that and wanted municipal leaders from all over America to just buy into this concept of building pathways to brighter futures for all residents.
Clarence, as I just said, local government is where we make things happen for our citizens and for our constituents. People may not know who are the members of their congressional delegation. They might not even know who are the members of their legislative delegation. But I can rest assured, we can rest assured that people know who their mayor is. People know who council members are because we touch them on a very local level. And so we have to use our influence in public service, I believe, to close many of the gaps that we see that are emerging even on a more intense level. The divide between the haves and the have nots, the issue which I talked about also of inclusion of everyone. And I often use this analogy. You've heard me say it before. You cannot have part of your city at an A grade and part of your city at a D grade and think you've got a great city. You've got to get that D grade up. That's what the students do in school. If you want a better average, you got to get that D grade up. And so if we want a better city, a better community that reflects the values that and the mission that we have for our community, then we've got to make sure we focus on those areas of disinvestment so we can get that D grade up and really have an A grade city at the end of the day where everyone feels that it is a place where they can thrive and prosper. I don't know the data on this, Clarence, but the average citizen, you can look at me as a data point, if you will. The average citizen stays in one place and calls it home for the majority of their life. And when they call a place home, they're looking at a place where they want to raise their family, where their children feel safe, and where they feel that they can have thriving careers and prosper and earn a decent living so that they can pay their bills and maintain their dignity. And while mayors cannot do all of that, and while city council members cannot do all of that, we play a very significant role in making a difference in the lives of thousands of people, especially when it comes to quality of life issues.
I used to talk about that a lot years ago because it's like building a sense of community. If you are able to have a job in a community, buy a home in that community, parks, and other investments in that community, you're going to say, that's my home. You're not just going to say, I live here just because. You're going to say, oh, I live in Baton Rouge and that's my home. And I think building those pathways to the future is not just going to help those residents, it's also help the youth and the other kids that are also including the elderly. So I was inspired by this concept of pathways to a brighter future. And I'm so pleased that we're going to continue to lift up that concept and hope that you are going to be involved and a part of how we do that. So I'm excited about it.
I believe that the season is really ripe, if you will, for this type of conversation because there are many people in America who are wondering what the future is going to look like and what their pathway is going to look like. So I believe we can play an important role in helping to bring people and unite people around shared goals and a shared vision.
Now, as you think about the pathways and the shared vision and the time that you've served over the 35 years, it is a time of reflection sometimes. And I know when I got out of office after over 20 years, I started thinking about what did I achieve? What do I want to leave? What inspiration to the residents? Do you think about that right now? And what kind of legacy do you feel your years of service has left on the community?
Well, I will tell you first that comes to my mind is that I have been blessed to break through some barriers that have existed for a long time for elected officials in government. So now, little girls throughout Baton Rouge and young women who aspire leadership roles in government, they know it can be done because Sharon Weston Broome has shown them that becoming the first woman ever elected mayor of the city of Baton Rouge, serving in leadership positions in the House and State House and State Senate. So that's very important for the future. And I said little girls, but other little boys too certainly can get a vision around leadership as well. So I think that's an important part of my legacy. I also think what's important is that I have worked very intentionally to try to unite our community around shared goals. And that's not an easy task. And I believe it's something that still has to take place. Establishing a commission on racial equity and inclusion. I'm very proud to do that, have done that. In addition, passing the largest infrastructure project for those of us in local government, we know that aging infrastructure is an issue. And so I was successful in passing the largest infrastructure project in the history of Baton Rouge through our Move VBR program, a $1 billion initiative. And then historically, getting a stormwater master plan done to look at water management for those of us who deal with those issues on a regular basis. And I often say, Clarence, that I don't think any other mayor in the history of Baton Rouge has had to deal with and lead a community out of a number of crises, whether it was the trauma that we had in 2016 through an officer involved shooting and then having officers shot and then having a great flood, leading our community out of that trauma. No other mayor has had those experiences. No other mayor has had to lead a city out of COVID, a pandemic. And now coming out on the other side of that, having the strongest economy in the state of Louisiana. I'm very thankful and very proud of those initiatives and the work that we did in those spaces and lifting up the first supplier diversity division in the history of our city parish government through DBE programs for women, minority, veteran, and small businesses. All of that speaks to the fabric of the people in our community. So I believe that I have touched a lot of different people through the initiatives and through the money that we have invested in our community throughout Baton Rouge. So I believe that will be part of my legacy. I believe history will treat me well. I'm very optimistic that that will happen.
Well, it just sounds like all of the things that you've just talked about is going back to building those pathways to a brighter future in Baton Rouge. And I do know and believe that you're right. Um, you will be treated well. I want to take advantage of this moment, though, to kind of ask you a question that kind of will help other leaders. You know, in the last decade or so, we've seen public policy change in the way in which our elected officials are navigating the changing landscape. What has changed over your years as it relates to the service of public officials in office? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I certainly can. As someone who's been in elected office for 35 years, I have certainly seen a shift. When I first started this journey of public service, I will tell you that partisan politics was at an all time low. I have seen now partisan politics elevate to an all time high over the past 35 years. I believe that one of the reasons when I was in the House and the Senate that I was successful in achieving the second highest leadership role in both houses was because partisan politics did not dictate a lot of our decisions. Sure, there were people who came from geographical areas who ran on certain platforms, Republicans, Democrats, that did have certain goals that they wanted to achieve. But the civility that existed among us was stronger. And as I said, the partisan politics was not as high as it is now. So I was able to garner unanimous support from Republicans and Democrats, Democrats, Republicans, independents, to become the first woman as Speaker Pro Tem of the House, and then move on to becoming President Pro Tem of the Senate. Now, I have seen that shift take place where now partisan politics seems to dominate too much of public service, of government leadership. And I think we've got to, I know we have to get back to not allowing that to happen. So that's one thing that I've seen. We've got to keep our focus on the people and what's best for the people that we serve. When I first came into office, we didn't have social media. We didn't have all of these platforms where people could express themselves, sometimes in a very negative way towards elected officials. And I have seen that impact the drive of elected officials. I've seen that impact, their soul and their spirits as they've tried to lead. And that's why as I make my exit, I really have a heart to make sure that those people who feel that commitment to public service are undergirded, if you will, with all the support that they need and the encouragement that they need. You've heard me say this probably before, Clarence. We both know that public service is not for the faint of heart. But we do know that you've got to develop some real tough, thick skin in public service. And we also know, and I've never talked about this a lot, but when I look back over the 35 years, you know, elected officials receiving threats, and that was not even part of a narrative. But as the first woman elected as mayor president, the first African American woman elected as mayor president, my police department has had to look into potential threats against me, and that was never a part of the public service landscape 35 years ago. Yeah, you may have gotten a few ugly constituent letters because you haven't done ABC for me, but threatening people's lives. So the calling is even more distinct now because there's so much in the space of being in the political arena, or as you hear me say consistently, being a public servant. So these are some of the things that I've seen shifted.
So, given that, and you're right, we're seeing where over 80% of municipal officials have received some form of threat. They've actually, some of their kids and families been bullied, especially on social media. I want some wisdom that you can share with newly elected or those that are still in office to share with them how do they manage this? How do they lead through this time?
I would encourage elected officials to remember the why during these tumultuous times. Remember the why. Why did you first start this journey? What was your motivation for wanting to run for elected office, for city council or mayor? I believe that has to be your guiding star throughout your tenure. I also think it's very important to surround yourselves with individuals who are going to be a part of your team, who are going to be there for you through thick and thin, whether it's family, friends, or other elected officials who are like minded. Uh, we need each other. We need each other in this process of service. And so I think that's very important. I would also say don't compromise your own wellness in this process. At the end of the day, you do not want to leave public office broken, depleted, depressed, etc. So you have to consistently work on your own wellness, physically and mentally. So I would say we need you. And so stay the course and know that there are many like myself who are cheering you on and who are here to support you.
And I can't let you go without talk about the why. I'm going to ask you the why of the National League of Cities. Why did you get involved, and why is it so important for elected leaders and city staff as well to get involved in the National League of Cities?
Well, I will always be one of the biggest cheerleaders for the National League of Cities. And I will tell you, it is because as a mayor, a newly elected mayor, I found the opportunity for assistance, information, whether it was technical assistance, going to the summits, hearing information that would help lead and guide me on various issues that you deal with as a local elected official. I also found a camaraderie of inclusiveness as well in the National League of Cities. And I will tell any local elected official the assistance that you get on every level, whether it's in the city summit or a congressional summit or just one on one in between those major events. It's priceless, and you're not going to find it anywhere else. I assure you, because I'm a member of a lot of different organizations. But the hands-on, genuine concern that you receive from the National League of Cities as a local elected official, you will not find in any other organization.
Well, Mayor Sharon Weston Broome, immediate past president of the National League of Cities, thank you so much for joining Cities Speak today. I want to take a point of personal privilege and let all of our listeners know that you've just heard the voice of a passionate and committed leader who's guided NLC, been involved in many associations throughout America, has led her community with grace and vision. And I have faith that you will continue to serve your community, all of our cities, towns, and villages, our nation in a way that we'll see you around for sure. And I'm so looking forward to that call of what you're going to do next. So, again, Mayor, thank you so much. And I appreciate you and value your partnership that you've had with me personally as well.
Thank you so much, Clarence.
Thanks for listening to City Speak with Clarence Anthony. If you like this show, let us know. Share this episode with your friends and make sure to subscribe. We're curious to hear what you think, what you want more of, and how we can improve. If you have feedback or an idea for a guest you'd like Clarence to sit down with, send us your thoughts at cityspeakpodcast@nlc.org. Join us next month for a new episode. Like and subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.